Have you seen the movie where the hero is a small, eccentric guy with talent and a big dream who on occasion rubs people the wrong way? And through the film, he's constantly pressured to compromise his standards so the rich and powerful can line their pockets? In February 2026 at the Alamo Draft House, life imitates art.
Texas-based Alamo Draft House is making a big change to the way customers order food at the movies, and it's causing some controversy online.
The Alamo Draft House Cinema has been bringing crowds together to share their love of movies since 1997. Its appeal is multifaceted. Hungry for more than popcorn? They serve a full menu. Need a drink stronger than a soda? There's a full bar. Want to see something outside the new releases, something retro or indie? Alamo Draft House prides itself on diverse programming, making room in their theaters for the weird, wild, and wonderful. Most theaters don't do all that, and Alamo Draft House has always prided itself on being an exceptional experience for patrons willing to abide their 3 simple rules. Don't talk, don't text, keep your cell phone silent, dark, and in your pocket. Those rules signaled who Alamo Draft House was for, and who it wasn't. A place where filmmakers and audiences could come together to celebrate film the way it's meant to be experienced. The only screen, the big one. The only sound, surround. Which is why it's such a shock the Alamo Draft House announced beginning in February 2026, cell phone usage will not only be allowed during the movie, it will be required. Now, if you love movies, you should care about this, but even if you never go to the theater these days, it's still important. When corporate interests supersede culture and community, the cost isn't just measured in dollars. So after nearly 30 years, why would a theater built on human curation and shared responsibility replace that winning system with a cold, dark screen? Last week I asked that question in a short video, and it took off. The conversations that followed, both in the comments and privately, sent me down a rabbit hole I didn't expect, and after the jump, I'm sharing everything.
Nora, are you sure this is an emergency? We have tickets to the theater.
Hi everybody, Papanaut here. I'm a dad that loves movies from San Antonio, Texas. And the irony is not lost on me that I've become a defender of the Alamo. Or at least the Alamo Draft House I knew and loved ever since my first visit back in 2001. So let's rewind the clock and run the timeline to understand how a theater built on rules ended up breaking its own. To understand the Alamo Draft House, you have to get to know its founders, Tim and Carrie League. Tim graduated from Rice University in 1992 with degrees in mechanical engineering and art history. After graduating, he took a job as an engineer at Shell Oil in Bakersfield, California, a career that would have made him money, but didn't make him happy. So Tim made a bet on himself, and within a couple years, he walked away from engineering to chase his real passion: movies. Tim and Carrie opened their first movie theater right there in Bakersfield by leasing the already established Tejon Theater. This proto-draft house showed independent, cult, and classic films to some success, but all leases end and the Tejon ultimately closed in 1995. Undeterred, they packed up and moved to Austin, Texas, and in 1997, they launched the first Alamo Draft House Cinema at 409 Colorado Street. The now famous rules of the Draft House don't enter the picture later. They were baked in from day one. Tim has been explicit about why, and I've linked a video in the description if you want to hear it in his words. The no-talking policy wasn't about being precious or elitist. It was about protecting the movie from its own audience. The goal wasn't to please everyone. It was to create a space for people who actually wanted to watch the movie. If you couldn't follow the rules, punishment was severe. You were asked to leave without a refund. That firm response became part of the brand.
So thanks for making me feel like a customer. Thanks for taking my money.
Not only did Draft House enforce these rules, they celebrated them, enlisting celebrities to record pre-show PSAs reminding audiences not to talk or text. These shorts are always funny, often a little aggressive.
Put your phone down.
But never unclear. They make for a fun watch and are still available on the Alamo Draft House YouTube channel, at least for now. Link in the description. As a patron, if I had to sum up the Alamo Draft House in one sentence, it's an experience curated soup to nuts by film lovers for film lovers. You feel that curation in every detail. On the screen, new releases alongside signature series like Weird Wednesdays, where you can experience retro jaw-droppers like Devil Times 5 or Double Agent 73. On your plate, a menu shaped by chefs like John Bullington, who helped elevate what movie theater food could mean in the early 2000s. In your glass, a pour from a full bar serving craft beer well before the craft beer boom of the mid-2000s. Drafthouse pioneered the idea that a movie theater could be a legitimate place to happy hour. All of that curation required an equally thoughtful way to deliver it. So if you've never been to an Alamo Drafthouse, it's worth explaining how ordering actually works. When you sit down, you're given a small card and a pen or pencil. During the movie, if you want food or a drink, you just write it down and clip the card to the rail in front of you. Trouble with a loud table? Raise an order card and management will address it. That's it. No talking, no waving, no phones lighting up the room. A server quietly walks by, picks up the card, and your order shows up a little bit later. They would even time the food drops to avoid interrupting your movie's most important scenes. Those servers weren't just taking orders, they were brand ambassadors enforcing and protecting the Drafthouse way. In my experience, it works really well. The early Drafthouse was built on paper. Paper tickets, paper orders, and a lot of trust in the people in the room. When online ticketing became the standard in the early aughts, Tim knew he needed an ally from the tech space to get with the times. Enter CTO Mike Trafton. Mike wasn't just an old friend, he was a thoughtful IT leader and a believer in the Drafthouse mission. Instead of buying an off-the-shelf solution for online ticketing, his team rebuilt the Drafthouse web presence entirely, complete with a custom ticketing experience designed specifically around how the Alamo operates, taking the website from this to this. When asked about Mike, Tim says the following. He was passionate about the consistency of the queso, the crispness of the center channel treble, the warmth of the concierge greeting, and the perfect balance of sweet, sour, and bitter in a finely crafted cocktail. He obsessed about every detail of the Alamo experience. It's important to note that obsession with the experience because when we get to the 2026 digital transformation that allows cell phone usage in the theater, it's the bespoke and finely tuned experience Mike and his team developed that's being paved over. In 2004, Tim and Carrie League made a decision that would shape the future of the Alamo Drafthouse in ways they couldn't fully control. In an effort to spread their love of movies far and wide, they sold the rights to expand the Alamo Drafthouse brand to an outside group while retaining control of the original Austin theaters. This is a big turning point, and from that moment on, the Alamo Drafthouse starts feeling a little less local and a little more corporate. That 2004 expansion wasn't abstract to me, I felt it directly. That was the year San Antonio got its first Alamo Drafthouse at Westlakes. Closer than Austin, it shaved about an hour off my drive to catch a movie at the Drafthouse. Believe me, there were a ton of skeptics. A Drafthouse outside of Austin? The Drafthouse is Austin. But to their shock and my delight, they pulled it off. The experience scaled without losing its identity. But behind the scenes, there were some changes. Terrell Braley became CEO following the 2004 expansion deal to help Drafthouse scale. And this era marks a shift in focus from innovation towards replication. Under Braley's leadership, Alamo Drafthouse began expanding more aggressively, using a franchise-style model that allowed new operators to open locations under the Alamo name, guided by brand standards and shared expectations. For many moviegoers, the results were positive. More audiences experienced a theater that actually enforced etiquette. But as these new satellite Drafthouses expanded further from the home planet of Austin, the transmission of its founding culture and values got a little muddy. For Drafthouse, more locations meant more managers. More managers meant more layers. More layers meant more decisions were being made outside of the theaters themselves, sometimes by employees who didn't even go to the movies in their free time. Tim's system to enforce the core values of Drafthouse was becoming harder to hold together and difficult to translate through org charts, training manuals, and KPIs. By 2010, Tim League was involved in a legal dispute with the Braley Martin ownership group over brand stewardship. That dispute eventually led to Tim being reinstated in a leadership role and reconnecting the founders back into the company's operations. With League back at the helm, the Drafthouse enters a decade of relative stability. And then, in 2020, the entire model was put under stress in a way no amount of culture or curation could prepare for. Movie theaters were among the first businesses to shut down during the pandemic, and unlike restaurants, there's no takeout or patio option. They closed. 0 tickets sold. During this chaos, in April 2020, Shelley Taylor was appointed CEO and Tim League moved into a chairman position, where he could maintain input without being the final word on business decisions. Shelley's background was very different from Tim. She came from Starbucks and Planet Fitness, which meant her experience was rooted in scaling large, service-oriented physical businesses, a logical fit for this era of Drafthouse. Unfortunately, no amount of business savvy could survive COVID unscathed, and the pandemic took its toll. In early 2021, Alamo Drafthouse filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Their survival was paid for with investment money and delivered with a ticking clock. Firms like Altamont and Fortress don't invest indefinitely. Their involvement is usually tied to a defined timeline that's broken up into 3 acts. Act 1, stabilize. Act 2, optimize. Act 3, sell for profit. Often those exit windows are measured in just a few years. Having experienced life in a business during one of these cash infusions, I can tell you, it is a chaotic experience. It feels like you're being boarded by pirates proclaiming the best intentions, but when they say optimize, they mean cost cutting and labor is a line item, so you do the math. In mid-2023, Shelley Taylor retired as CEO, and her exit marks the start of our final act. Enter Michael Kusterman, the current CEO of Alamo Drafthouse. Based on his public professional record, a few things are clear. Michael's background is rooted in technology-driven businesses. He's comfortable with digital platforms, data, and process optimization. In short, he's made his career addressing digital problems with digital solutions. It's also clear is what isn't part of his public background. There's no experience in film, entertainment, hospitality, restaurant operations, or service models where the experience lives and dies on human interaction. In my experience, incoming CEOs love to hang their hat on a buzzword or trend to kind of set expectations for what life will be like working under them. For Michael, no surprise, it's digital transformation. But was the problem with the business digital? The theater is rebounding from COVID. Movies have been delayed, sent straight to streaming, or altogether canceled. People are still getting used to being in public together again. Many of us are still wearing masks, which makes eating tough. GLP-1s are shrinking appetites, so the food industry is finding its new level. Michael doesn't address any of this with his digital transformation mandate. What does it address? Remember our fully working home-baked app from earlier? The care and feeding of an app like that requires a team of full-time employees and generally not the cheap ones. So he starts to move the Draft House into a position where eliminating the pen and paper ordering system makes sense operationally. Follow his logic. If you believe that labor is your biggest cost and inconsistency is your biggest risk, then a phone starts to look like a better solution. A cheaper waiter, a digital order pad, and a deeper data collection tool. Michael is pushing this digital transformation when in 2024, Sony Pictures Entertainment acquired Alamo Drafthouse, folding the chain into a new division focused on theatrical experiences. A studio owning a theater chain brings up immediate conflict of interest concerns when it comes to programming. Many folks were wondering, are they just going to show Sony movies there? And fortunately, that hasn't been the case, but there have been changes. One thing I noticed post-Sony acquisition is they started selling more merch. Apparel, collectible pint glasses, popcorn buckets, that kind of stuff. They also moved from a restaurant-style pay model for servers and instituted an 18% service fee on every check. A move they claim is to help pay their staff an equitable wage regardless of guest tips, which are still encouraged. So when did the guests of Alamo Drafthouse really feel the impact of Michael's digital transformation? Around fall 2025. I remember going to the theater to sit down to find not only the pen and paper, but a QR code stuck to my table. A server came by and explained it's available to use before the movie to order food and drinks if the server is unavailable. It was not to be used during the film. There were difficulties with the rollout. Season Pass members, for example, had difficulty getting their discounts to apply through the QR code, but fortunately the workaround was easy. Raise an order card. In general, QR feedback was neutral at best, skeptical at worst. Skeptics at the time said, this option is a test, and if it saves them money, they're gonna take away the more expensive option, the human one. Which brings us to January 9th, 2026, when Michael sent the following email to his staff. For nearly 30 years, Alamo Drafthouse Cinema has stood for one thing above all else: protecting the joy of going to the movies. That commitment to our guests, to each other, and to the experience we create together hasn't changed. As the entertainment landscape shifts around us, we're making thoughtful and necessary updates to our service model to ensure Alamo remains strong, sustainable, and true to who we are. We're proud to share that our newly launched custom-built dark screen QR mobile ordering system is already delivering strong results with positive guest and teammate feedback, and we will be expanding upon it. As you know, that system allows guests to browse the menu, order and pay directly from their phones, all while reducing distractions in the auditorium. Beginning in February, we will expand the mobile ordering system to replace the traditional pen and paper ordering, call button, and check drop, while fully preserving our no talking, no texting policy during the movie. Food and drinks will be ordered exclusively via QR rather than guest attendance, both prior to and during the film, and will continue to be delivered directly to guest seats. These updates will help us operate more efficiently while protecting what makes Alamo special, a truly immersive moviegoing experience with as few distractions as possible. And just like that, a policy the brand celebrated for nearly 3 decades was jeopardized in the name of optimization. How can a model work that requires guests to exclusively use a phone-native QR system to order items and refills during the movie while effectively enforcing a no texting policy? In the following Q&A published by Drafthouse, to report a distracting table in the new model, after you've scanned the QR code and entered the menu screen, there will be an option to request service. Use your phone to report phone usage. Got it.
Much that they don't text.
Having a background in software, I can tell you that any rollout like this is going to require boots on the ground support to implement. The staff of every Alamo will be expected to be subject matter experts for QR ordering, answering guest questions and providing creative solutions when things get bumpy. And they're going to have to do all that while navigating their brand new job, because the email goes on to say that at the same time they're executing this digital transformation, they're also implementing a full staff reorganization. With the phone and guests doing the lion's share of the server's work, that role is being repurposed. I want to make something clear. The staff at the Draft House is second to none. None of these changes mean the people working these jobs care less. If anything, they're being asked to care more with fewer tools, less autonomy, and tighter margins. When I read the email, I couldn't believe it. I posted a reel for the community to see, and it's currently sitting at over 230,000 views on Instagram. For a place with deep roots in community and etiquette, its handling of the initial feedback has been as shocking as the change itself. With comments demanding answers raining in not just on my posts, but on theirs, the Draft House has stayed largely silent. All emails on this have been met with a canned reply echoing the same hollow marketing jargon as Michael's email. The mask is off, their answer is in their actions, and the message is clear. Accept our decision and comply, or find a theater you're more aligned with. If you need something at Draft House, pull out your phone. For longtime Victory members like me, alternatives are hard to come by. All theaters are taking a beating, and Draft House was the only one that gave you the experience you deserve when you buy a ticket. With media mergers threatening monopoly in the streaming space and touting a mandate of shorter theatrical runs, to the fact that the once affordable pastime of moviegoing has for many been priced out due to inflation, it feels like one battle after another. With Draft House, the lone big player defending theater etiquette in jeopardy, the clock for all theaters ticks closer to midnight.
What do we learn, Palmer?
So let's end on this. Why should we care so much about movie theater preservation in 2026? Your Town Cinema is a non-denominational third space where people from all walks of life come together. The only barrier to entry is a ticket. The only shared belief required is the desire to be entertained. You can go any day of the week, day or night. You can come with friends, you can come alone. But regardless of how you came, you leave having had a shared experience with neighbors you might not have anything in common with outside of that one moment. And we live in a world that's so busy, our attention is stretched to exhaustion. In a movie, you have one thing to focus on, one screen, one story, told in a format that requires your patience and attention. When you're watching a great movie, your attention is held in the hands of a master storyteller. Every choice, handcrafted by design. Every detail, a gift to you, the viewer. Where you plant a cinema, you grow a diverse community, and that community's delicate connection is defended by the standards and values of that theater. Does your community want a theater that values its staff and guests and is always looking for ways to bring them together? Or a theater that's values change with the share price, optimizing until every ounce of human interaction and heart is left on the cutting room floor? And when we sit down for a film, do we want to leave our tiny screens and all their trappings behind and be transported to a place where we can actually coexist? Or have no break from the noise and one less place to rebuild our common ground? It's not the most important thing in 2026, but it sure as hell matters.